They say that it's impossible to beat Wall Street. And yet, if that's the case, over the last 11 plus years, how does a former middle school teacher, myself, beat Wall Street at its own game? My name is Brian Stoffel. I'm going to take the next couple of minutes to try and explain how this has happened. And sure enough, I've been tracking my results since December 31st, 2014. And you can see the market's returns on the red line and my portfolio's returns on the green line, nearly doubling those returns. Now, many of you might know me from my decade plus with the Motley Fool or any number of other organizations that I've been published with over the past 15 years. However, what some of you may not know is that before all of that, coming out of college, investing was the last thing on my radar. You could call me a reluctant investor because my first 5.5 years out of college were spent at KIPP DC, a public charter school in Washington, DC. And as you can see, KIPP DC did an amazing job of helping students graduate from high school, matriculate from college, and graduate from college much better than their peers in the district and on par with or better than the US averages. And this was with a population where over 80% of the students qualified for Title I assistance. So this is how I thought I would be spending my time as an adult. Because of my time at KIPP DC, there was a couple things that were really key. First, it was a structured, organized, disciplined approach to education that was data driven and very calculated, where teachers were held accountable. They had personal responsibility for outcomes, and the standards were incredibly high. I mention all of that because it was an important foundation for what was to come next. Now, you might be wondering if that was the case, why did I leave? I was making a difference. I was part of a great organization. I was recognized for my talents in teaching the students. And I loved the relationship that I had with the students and my fellow teachers. But all of that came at a price. School was from 7:30 to 5 p.m. every day. There was mandatory Saturday school. There was mandatory summer school. And as I was in my fifth year, I was starting to transition to an administrative role. That was a price that I could no longer pay if my wife and I wanted to start a family. That is what led me to become a reluctant investor. I didn't start doing this so that I could own a yacht. I did it because I wanted full autonomy of my time. But here was the problem. I did not have a background in finance, in economics. Remember, I wanted to be and was a middle school writing teacher. And so when I went out to be educated in this, I was confronted with what I now realize was a false choice. Where on one hand, I could give my money over to Wall Street suits that charged high fees and used complex jargon largely to confuse me. And on the other hand, especially these days, you can go to social media and follow the social media bros, of which I would understand myself being called one as well. The difference is that many of these folks, not all, but many, don't have an extensive track record and are suggesting things that can be very risky. Now, what I was lucky to believe in and find was that there is a secret third option where you can find a teacher who is rigorous, transparent, proven, and educational. And that is what I have developed to help others who are finding themselves in the same position that I was in all those years ago to discover how they can invest for themselves and do well and beat the market. And it's a 5-step process that I call the Adapt Investing Framework. Each letter stands for something different. The first thing is assessing the story. That means you've got to figure out what is the moat? What is the sustainable competitive advantage that a company has? Who's managing the company? And what type of potential does it have moving forward? Once you have that story down, we move to the D, which is a data deep dive. A story is great. A story is what captivates human beings, but without data to back that story up, it's an empty promise. So you need to know how to read an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow statement to know that the financials can confirm and back up that story. Now, even if you've got a great story that is backed up by the numbers, you need to know how to value a company because if you overpay for it, the best story in the world sometimes won't work out well for you as an investor. So the second A is analyzing valuation. Now, once you do that, the job is not done. You need to decide how much of my portfolio do I devote to this and how much to that. That's the P in portfolio allocation, where I learned how to size my positions to balance the risk and the reward. And finally, you need to track your progress because a portfolio is a living, breathing thing. And if you don't, then you could be left holding something that you wish you would have gotten rid of. Now, this is the process that I used over the last 15 years, came up by myself, but with the help of many other organizations. And it has resulted in, again, what I call the adapt investing framework. Now, I have made a 100% free ebook, visual ebook about the adapt investing framework. All you got to do is click the top link in the show notes below to help you get you on that journey. Now, my goal when it comes to investing is anti-fragility. Anti-fragility means that things not only don't break when exposed to stress, time, and pressure, and they not only stay the same, but they actually get stronger. I want to invest in anti-fragile companies that get stronger when exposed to time and stress. I want to invest in anti-fragile stocks that aren't fragile or ridiculously high valued to missteps. And I want a portfolio that has the ability to keep up when times are good, but accelerate when times get tough. Now, this is very different than Wall Street that prioritizes immediate gains over long term growth, that wants to impress its peers, and most importantly, wants you to be confused. That's not what I want. I want what I wish I had 16 years ago when I started investing. I talk about my portfolio all the time, and it is long term in nature with 90% of my family's net worth in it. I want to scaffold for understanding to empower followers. And I believe that if you don't understand a lesson, then I'm the one who's failed. And what's the proof that this works? Well, I've already shown you this, the proof of the portfolio. But remember, the whole reason that I got into this in the first place, because my wife and I wanted time to start a family. And not only do we have time to volunteer at our kids' schools, to coach our kids' teams, to be here when they get home every day from school, but to also spend our winters abroad in Costa Rica where they can be out in nature. And that is something that, for me, is the real benefit in whatever form it might take for you of having the financial freedom to choose your own future. So if you want that absolutely free investing ebook, don't forget to click that top link in the show notes below and hit subscribe because it does help the channel. Please keep up to date with everything I have to offer with the Adapt Investing Framework right here on this channel.